Hello, my name is Christiane. I'm a kinesiologist with Simply Health Solutions, and as somebody who's worked with seniors for quite a number of years, I always like thinking about what are some common and really helpful exercises that you can do in your day-to-day to help improve your everyday life. So first off, why does strength training even matter for seniors? Well, there's actually a ton of benefits to strength training and exercising as we get older. First off, we want to think about rebuilding our muscles and strength to help counteract the muscle loss that we naturally experience as we get older. And the problem is, as we get older, that decrease in muscle and strength tend to go a little bit faster. So we do definitely want to get ahead of that decline. The other thing is it helps to improve balance and prevent falls. So the idea is stronger legs and core help you to keep you steady and reduce your falls risk. Then we want to think about protecting our bones and our joints. So loading muscles helps maintain bone density and joint support. So especially for those who maybe have maybe osteoarthritis or osteoporosis, this could actually be something that would be really, really helpful. You do also want to help support your daily independence. So the idea that making sure that it's easy to get up a flight of stairs, get out of bed, take a shower without worrying about your overall balance is going to be really, really helpful. Also helps, load things into your car, grocery shopping, and just keeps you as independent as you possibly can. The other thing that people don't realize is actually really, really helpful is it helps with your overall mood and brain health. So regular training helps support memory, focus, and emotional well-being. So while there are many, many things you can do to improve your brain health, exercise is going to be one of the top things you want to work on. Now, there are a couple of studies out there that had some interesting results. One of them just looked at the fact that strength training helped to improve physical function, lean muscle, and lower body strength in older adults, and even at modest weekly amounts. So it's that idea of you don't have to be working out, for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. You actually can achieve pretty good results in relatively few workouts throughout the week. The other thing, or the other study, looked at the idea that bigger gains came from 3 sets, 2-3 times a week, over 8 to 12 weeks at a modest effort. So the idea is, you don't have to do anything too crazy. You don't have to be working out for several hours, but it's just the idea of consistent couple of times a week can be really, really helpful. The other thing is that idea of the National Strength and Conditioning Association confirms that resistance training is a safe, powerful way for older adults to fight age-related muscle and strength loss. You'd be really, really surprised. I've been doing this for quite a number of years, and I always love seeing people achieve results that they never thought were possible. Now, as with any new exercise routine, you always want to check in with your doctor. Make sure you get clearance before starting any new exercise program, especially if you've got any sort of medical condition going on, whether that's high blood pressure, diabetes, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis. You do want to check in with your doctor. And once you've had kind of that medical clearance side of things all looked at, you do also want to maybe contact a exercise physiologist or a kinesiologist to kind of help you figure out what things you should kind of keep an eye out for. So for example, if you're a diabetic, you want to keep an eye on your blood sugars. If you've got high blood pressure, there's a couple of things that we would encourage you to make sure that we don't spike your blood pressure too high when you're exercising. I mean, some elevated blood pressure is normal and expected, but there are going to be safe levels to do so. Then you want to think about form, right? So the idea of doing the exercise correctly. It's not just about adding on the weights or adding on the resistance, but you want to make sure you're doing the exercise properly before adding on any sort of increased resistance. The other thing too is make sure you're using support. If you're worried, the number one thing I always say is never sacrifice safety when you're doing your exercises. So never put yourself at risk. Some people will seem to think that, oh, if I'm working on my balance, then I have to like really test my balance, to the point where like they could put themselves at risk for a fall. But you do want to make sure you're trying to be as safe as possible when doing your exercises. So whether that's using a sturdy chair or a wall or a counter, or maybe having somebody with you while you're exercising is always going to be a safe bet. The other thing too is you do want to make sure you're warming up. So that'll look different for each individual person. So maybe marching in place, rolling your shoulders, and just kind of maybe warming up for maybe 5-10 minutes as you're about to start a bigger set of exercises. The other thing too is be sure you're breathing steadily. So make sure you are not holding your breath, because especially if you're new to exercise, that's actually surprisingly common. People always look at me funny when I tell them to breathe, make sure you're breathing. They look at me funny until 3 seconds later when they realize they are not breathing. And then they kind of suddenly, oh shoot, I haven't been breathing. So do make sure you are breathing while you're exercising. And kind of a common thing we tend to say is exhale as you exert. So the idea is you're breathing out during the hard part of a movement. That's going to be a general guideline for most movements. The other thing too is stop if it hurts. A lot of people talk about that no pain, no gain, but that isn't necessarily true. You do want to make sure you're not going to hurt yourself, especially if you do have kind of medical things going on, maybe past surgeries, past injuries. You do want to make sure you are being smart about it and that you are taking your time. So the idea is mild effort is good. You do want to be pushing yourself a little bit, but any sort of sharp pain, dizziness, intense burning, some tingling, like anything that seems unusual is going to be a sign that you should probably slow down, modify, or stop. So when it comes to thinking about how much or how often, that's going to depend based on the individual, but as a general guideline, something you can look at is trying to go 2 to 3 days per week. So the idea is non-consecutive days. You do want to have a rest day in between so that your muscles recover from the workout, because the increase in strength and the gain in muscle is actually going to be during your rest days, not actually during the individual exercises. You want to aim for maybe like 8 to 10 muscle groups. So things like working on different leg muscles, arm muscles, your core. You want to try to make sure you're not just doing one particular body part. If you are going to be doing kind of 2 to 3 days, some people do split it up into maybe like an arm day and a leg day, but that's usually if you're planning to exercise 4 to 5 days a week, because that will give each muscle group a chance to rest. But if you are sticking to 2 to 3 days a week, you do want to try to do a whole body exercise during each workout. Maybe do about 1 to 3 sets of each exercise and building up gradually. And same thing with repetitions. So maybe 8 to 15 repetitions. And the last few are you want them to feel challenging, but doable. So usually if, let's say, you're going for 10 reps, you want to maybe start feeling like the intensity, maybe at about rep 7. If you're feeling that it's quite difficult at rep 2, it might be too hard. And if by rep 10 it still feels a little too easy, then you want to maybe increase the resistance. And then the idea is you want to progress gradually. So once a set feels easy, maybe add a little weight, maybe a few more reps, another set. Small, steady increases build lasting strength. So it's that idea of you don't try to, double your reps, double your weight. You don't try to like move too quickly because our bodies can only handle so much of an increase at each individual time. So one thing I tell people very often is if you're only ever going to do one exercise ever, I would highly, highly recommend the sit to stand, also known as squats. So the idea is it helps to work your legs, your hips, and your glutes. So you can sit tall near the front of a sturdy chair, make sure your feet are flat. You want to maybe lean slightly forward and push through your heels. Sometimes we say, nose over toes, so that idea of you're leaning slightly forward. You're going to stand fully, then lower back down with control. What I often find is people, they go halfway up and then collapse on the way down. So the idea is you want to be nice and slow, take your time, come all the way up, fully straighten out, and then slowly come down. Especially if you've got any sort of back issues, you don't want to be like falling into that chair every single time. And maybe repeat for about 8 to 12 times. Use armrests if needed. So again, using as much support, as little or as much support as you need. And do make sure, I often recommend that people put that chair maybe right up against a wall, just so that that chair doesn't slide away from you when you go to sit down or when you go to stand up. That's going to be one safety feature that can be very, very helpful. And this does help to build leg strength so that every time you get up, you've got the leg strength to go about your day. You'd be absolutely amazed what happens if you lose the strength in your legs. Your whole life changes if you can't get out of a chair by yourself. Next, we've got wall push-ups. Really, really helpful for your chest, your shoulders, your arms. One really, really important reason why you want to do this is so that if you ever have a fall to the ground, you're going to need that arm strength to help get you up off of the ground. I had a client who wasn't able to get up from the ground if he ever had a fall. And one day I went to go see him early morning, and I found him on the floor, and turns out he had been there since the previous night because he had fallen out of bed, had no way of getting up, and had no way to call for help. So he had basically laid on the floor all night long. So this is definitely going to be one of those things you really, really want to work on, that ability to get up and down from the ground independently. And you can use a chair. There's tons of things that you can do. There's tons of ways you can work through that. But you do want to make sure it is a skill you want to maintain or something you want to work on. So when it comes to wall push-ups, you want to stand about arm's length from a wall, hands at about shoulder height. This is going to, again, always going to vary based on the individual. Maybe if you've got shoulder issues or you've got other things going on, but that's going to be the general kind of way to do it. You want to keep your body straight from head to toe. A lot of people have a tendency to kind of maybe have a slight, either their hips too far out or too far in. And then you want to bend your elbows to bring your chest as close to the wall as you can. The idea is you want to make sure your feet are nice and solid, so because you don't want your feet to slide out from under you. So you do want to keep an eye on that. And then you're just kind of being as far or as close to the wall as you feel needed. So maybe right at the beginning, you're really, really close to the wall and you're getting a few degrees of movement. And then as you're getting stronger, you're moving a little bit further away from the wall. You want to do maybe 8 to 12 reps. Again, going to kind of depend on the individual. And this is it's a very nice, gentle, joint-friendly way to build that upper body strength. As somebody who had some training in Pilates kind of early in my career, that really has kind of shaped how I do things with my own clients. One thing I really, really encourage is very good posture, very good core control. One way to help with your posture is by doing seated resistance band rowing. So the idea is you're going to sit tall, loop around your feet, and make sure that that band is nice and solid. So sometimes people use the tubing. The problem with the tubing is it can sometimes roll off your foot and can kind of hit you in the face. Or if that band is like too close to your toes, again, can kind of slip and hit you in the face. So you do want to be careful with that. And also I always recommend keep your hands away from your face so that if it does snap or if it does head towards your face, it's not it's not heading towards your face, that it's going to be lower and that you're able to kind of keep yourself safe. Then you're going to hold each end in each hand with your arms extended, and then you're going to pull those elbows back, squeezing your shoulder blades behind you. So the idea is you don't want your elbows way out here. You want them nice and tucked in, and you're just pulling back and feel your shoulder blades start coming together. Make sure you're not letting your that band just kind of snap you in place and just kind of bring you back. You want to be in control the whole time. So whether you're going back or going forward, you want to make sure you are in control the whole time. Again, 10, 12 reps, depend on the individual. You can always look into different exercise bands. Do keep in mind that every resistance band company color codes differently. So a red band for one company might be a light resistance, but maybe for another company it might actually be their higher resistance. So always make sure you read the label. And this helps to strengthen your back muscles to help you stay upright. So for balance control, but also I find really good for like shoulder issues because if you are having kind of different shoulder pains and aches and different issues, you do want to make sure that your posture is staying nice and supported. Next, you want to take a look at standing heel raises. So this helps to keep your feet nice and healthy, also helps with balance control. What I've often found is that people who have very weak feet and ankles, you can end up tripping over like the tiniest little things on the floor, whether it's like a carpet or the threshold of a door or just literally any small little thing on the ground. If we're not in the habit of really lifting our toes and keeping our ankles nice and flexible. So with the heel toe raises, you want to make sure you're standing nice and tall and lightly holding on to a chair for balance, or if you are having kind of significant balance issues, maybe holding on to a counter, something that's not going to slide away from you. So always use as much support as you need. You want to slowly rise up onto the balls of your feet, pause at the top, then lower with control. So you're not just, in a sense, like falling to the ground, but you're slowly lowering to the ground. You're going to repeat 10 to 15 times. And again, kind of just take your time, maybe start off real slow, and kind of slowly work your way to adding more repetitions. This will help to improve your ankle strength and steadiness as you're walking. Now, another exercise that a lot of people don't think about, but can actually be really, really helpful, is a seated overhead press. So the idea of lifting your shoulders over your head. And it's kind of funny because sometimes I have like conflicting advice. So the idea is sometimes I say, you want to have things on a high shelf so that it forces you to really use your shoulders. Make sure you're stretching your shoulders, make sure you're keeping them nice and loose and limber. But if you are having significant balance issues, you might want to keep things on that middle shelf so that you're not risking your balance and risking a fall trying to reach for something. So that's going to be kind of a case-by-case basis, and just at the end of the day, you're keeping yourself safe, making sure you're doing whatever works for you. If you feel comfortable to do so, shoulder press can be a really, really good thing. I know a lot of people can have really stiff shoulders, maybe some frozen shoulder, maybe some rotator cuff issues. So either see somebody if you feel you really can't do this one, to see what are some modifications you can do, or maybe just start with zero resistance. So maybe if it's the resistance that's throwing you off, maybe doing it without resistance at all and just kind of working from there. So the idea is you want to sit tall with a light weight in each hand. And it does not have to be some super expensive thing at a gym. Honestly, you can start with a few cans of soup, or some water bottles, or an exercise band. So there's going to be tons of different things that you can do to add resistance. And then you're going to start with your hands at about shoulder height, palms forward, and then you're going to press the weights up until arms are nearly straight. And then, as always, you're lowering slowly. You want to do that for about 8 to 12 times. And we're just making sure that our posture is nice and tall and keeping our shoulder blades back. Because even in my case, if I were to roll my shoulders forward and then try a shoulder press, that would actually be very uncomfortable. So you do want to make sure that posture is nice and tall, that your shoulders are back before you keep going. The idea is you want to start light. So, like I said, cans of soup, water bottle, and then build up gradually. And you do just want to make sure that you're not feeling any sort of pain or impingement or any sort of discomfort in any of these exercises, but you'd be really surprised what you can achieve. I had one client where I was quite amazed at her progress, where like she had really, really stiff, really, really weak shoulders, but she worked so hard at it that she was able to get up to doing that with 2 pounds. So definitely it's going to be one day at a time. Make sure we're being patient with ourselves, but you'd be surprised what you can achieve. Now, if you're trying to figure out maybe a basic exercise plan, something you can do is maybe just have Monday, Wednesday, Friday be your strength workout days, and leaving a rest day in between. And that rest day doesn't mean literally like do nothing, but it could be something as simple as maybe some gentle activity, maybe go for a walk, maybe some light stretching. Personally, one thing I really love to do is just grab coffee with a friend and go for a walk, rather than maybe catching up in your home. If weather permits, maybe try going outside and going for that nice gentle walk. And the idea is you want to start with just one set, right? So start with a little bit, see how you feel, and then go from there. What happens with a lot of people when they first start exercising is they have these really, really big goals, and they'll go to the gym, they'll do something crazy, they'll pack on the weight, and then the problem is that's not something you can keep up consistently. And at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to aim for, is you want something consistent, so that it'll help to build lasting strength and to also build a lasting routine. Because there's no point in you working out like crazy for 1 week or 2 weeks and then never touching it ever again. So for those who are looking to get started, like I said, there's so many ways that you can get started. You can get started with those exercises. If you feel like there's anything off about them, or if maybe your doctor has some concerns and maybe you want to talk to somebody, feel free to reach out to us at Simply, and we can help guide you maybe along the right path, even just to have that conversation of, how do I get started? Where do I go from here? You'd be surprised that sometimes those little things, and even a very basic exercise routine in your own home at no cost and no kind of transportation can actually be really, really effective. It does not have to be something super, doesn't require a super expensive gym membership, doesn't require traveling to outside your home, especially for those who maybe there isn't something close by, or maybe you just don't have the resources or ability to go to that particular area. So there's always going to be something you can do. And like I said, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. So just be sure to, whatever you can, be sure to go out and try to stay active and healthy.